fiends, friends, and familiars, and welcome to 2026. This is our first interview of the new year, and I'm so excited to be doing it with Kym Jackson, who is Lieutenant Wilkie in the recently released We Bury the Dead film, which is now out in theaters. You can go check it out, as you should. But Kym is an accomplished actor, producer of film and television who's appeared in well over 60 different roles in places you might have seen her, such as NCIS, SWAT, but also in genre like films such as Eat Brains Love, Devil Dolls, and Voices from the Void. So Kym, so happy you're able to spend some time with me today, and thank you for agreeing to the interview.
Yes, thank you for letting me join you. And in case I forget to mention, Eat Brains Love is like one of the least watched, most awesome zombie films of all time. And I don't know why
I'm
everyone
gonna blow
hasn't
your
seen
mind
it.
because I
No,
have
no.
it. I have a physical copy right here.
Yes!
I don't know if you've
Oh
seen
my God,
seen
it's so
this.
good. It's so good.
Like it's there's a when this I think it's Vinegar Syndrome has like a sub label that put this out, and it was a blind buy for me, and I absolutely adored it. And I tell everyone about it. I'm like, this is the cutest, funnest, grossest zombie movie you're gonna see. So big fan.
It's awesome. Do you remember which character I played?
I don't. I know you were
I
in
was
it, so
the blonde.
I was like this. I was like summer. I was like a lesbian. I was a lesbian zombie, and we ate
wow.
pedophiles.
It's coming back to me now, but I just the ability for you to change the voice just like that is I mean, there's a reason you're getting paid to be in front of the camera and others aren't. That's for sure.
Well, that's why I asked because I look nothing like that now, and I look nothing like that in We Bury the Dead. So I was just
Yeah.
like, I don't know if you're gonna pick
Yeah.
it.
No, and I will be, and I'm of, as someone who has ADHD and a shit memory, I don't
High
remember as much as, yeah,
five,
I don't as much as I need to, but
friend.
I
I
always
feel
admit when I
seen.
don't. Yeah,
That's
it's,
awesome.
you don't want to invite me to trivia. Let's put it that way, because my recollection of facts is not going to be his best, but they're in there somewhere. Just getting to them is the hard part.
No, when I was 19, I was a trivia host. So I went around to all the veterans bars and stuff in Australia and I would host the trivia. And I'm like I'm pretty good like speed wise with processing because of the ADHD. And I literally knew none of the answers from any of the trivia. Even stuff that I asked on a nightly basis, I would very rarely remember the answer. I'm a terrible trivia uh, team member. It's
Yeah.
awful. Yeah.
One of our writers is so good at it that he's kind of like he's the most valuable player. So whatever team he's on when he goes to trivia is like the winning team. So whenever I go and join him, I'm like, I have to be on your team because I don't, if I'm not gonna choose to lose, right? Like if it's a choice,
Absolutely.
I'm always want to win. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, I I used to I still ask it sometimes, but I can always see the reaction of people's face when I ask them, if you were to pair your movie up with another film as a double feature, what do you think would make a good one? And the thing that happens is like you can see people's brains like Rolodexes just starting to turn as they're trying to access every movie they've ever seen, and they can feel their frustration and maybe a little bit of anxiety. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should take a pause on this question. I don't know. It's a good question, but it causes anxiety.
No, I got it. I got it. What's that Will Smith movie where he's just got like a dog?
I Am Legend.
That's my answer.
It's a perfect answer. And if you've seen We Bury the Dead, I think it makes a lot of sense because of companionship, but also seeking closure. And
Yeah, and it's a human story, right? Like it doesn't the quality of the film doesn't weigh on the zombie element.
right. And I think that's something that's quite unique about We Bury the Dead in that, I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of your first interaction with the script because we've reached a point with zombie films where it's almost kind of like we've evolved past just the zombie being the selling point, whereas now we have to kind of
Mm.
have the zombie or the infected or something, but there needs to be more to it. Like we're not just going to show up for that. So when you first read We Bury the Dead, what were kind of your initial reactions to just the overall story and the way things pan out?
I got to tell you, as you're reading the script, you almost forget that there's zombies. You're
Right?
like, I think I heard Daisy say in an interview that she like didn't really realize she was in a zombie movie till she got to Australia to shoot the film. But it is, it's like you know, it's just this beautiful story about this woman who's dealing, dealing with guilt and dealing with grief and dealing with getting closure. And, I think it's such a human thing. Like we all, when you're in any situation, especially romantic, there's such a huge temptation to get closure, external closure.
Yeah.
Obviously it's important in order to move on, to be able to kind of forgive and get closure inside yourself. But that seeking external validation for that need for closure often, puts us in a place where we use up so much of our time. We spend so much energy on it and so much emotional and mental energy, and we don't move on. Like we can't move on until we get to that point. And I think it is kind of I think if the film were a metaphor, it might be a metaphor on not seeking closure outside of ourselves,
Right.
because we often like girls when they go through a breakup, they always like want to write like this big long letter, and I'm always saying to my friends like, don't write the letter. Like every girl seems to, oh, not every girl, that's so sexist, but like I have experienced it only with my female friends. I've never seen a guy friend need to do it, but this like need to just say all of the unsaid things, and it's such a natural thing and it makes so much sense psychologically. It is such a good feeling. And do we really need that? Do we really need to get closure, or can we just accept that something has ended? And
Right.
so yeah, I think that's like an important element that crosses over beyond just the story, I suppose. But the
It,
script is amazing, is your answer. It's so
well,
good. I was like this the whole time.
and you're so right about something in that. I think that the difference in that, I having been through breakups myself, I think we always want, like, as a just to contextualize myself as like a cisgender hetero male, like it's not like I'm averse to my emotions or anything, but more so like I think we've just been socially trained maybe to hold that in as opposed to letting it out. And the reality is we closure, I guess, comes from acceptance. And acceptance is
Yeah,
a very individual thing. Nothing that anyone tells you is going to help you accept something better. You have to come to that yourself. And so I think,
yeah,
in a lot of ways, not only does We Bury the Dead kind of focus on the idea that often when we seek closure, it doesn't give us the sense of completion that we're seeking. Very much like in
mm,
revenge in stories, like how vengeance doesn't bring people back. It's like closure doesn't necessarily give you the
yeah,
explanation you want. It's more of a psychological need to ask questions that you don't have answers to, even if the answers aren't
yeah.
what you want to hear, or maybe what you expected. So it's
So
such a propulsive
true.
element in the story that I think again elevates it above what could have just been another infected zombie type film. And for your role as Lieutenant Wilkie, you kind of represent the authority, kind of the centralized authority group that's overseeing this body reclamation process. And at the same time, you have to be very kind of stern and almost I don't want to say lacking emotion, but just almost over direct in terms of letting people know, like Daisy Ridley's character, hey, you're going out there with a reason and a purpose, but the hard line and hard boundaries to cross. How do you prepare yourself for stepping into that kind of role where you have to be this kind of um, really kind of high agency, high authority individual with a clear, concise message?
Look, I think a bit of it is backstory. Zach and I kind of had a chat about her having lost someone on the island as well, and that she, uh, and kind of an element of it was because I'm so animated and I have like a natural, really, I'm like hyper feminine and hyper masculine. I had to kind of dull down the feminine element. And so I kind of split myself in two and made it like I'm a lesbian. My partner was the feminine side of me. Essentially, she was my only way to really understand the feminine elements of myself. And when she died on the island, pregnant with a little girl, in this catastrophe, all that was kind of kind or empathetic or understanding in me just died. And I just went cold. The walls just came down. And so that was how I was kind of able to chop myself in half, I suppose, and just be in completely in my masculine and completely in a place where I didn't really have much understanding. There was just anger and hate and resentment. And especially when Daisy comes in and she's American, and obviously the catastrophe was caused by the Americans. It those
We're sorry,
Americans.
and we're sorry in perpetuity, I think, because we're
Yeah,
not
just
doing
a
ourselves any
t-shirt.
favors in the nonfiction world either. So
That should be what all I'm look, I consider myself American at this point because I'm in the country more than I'm in Australia. But I feel like when Americans are traveling, it should just be a hat. I'm sorry. A
yeah,
t-shirt. I'm sorry.
we
So
did it.
sorry.
It's our bad.
I didn't, it wasn't me. Oh goodness.
It is the escape hatch though of just saying like, where it is this like, hey, sorry, we'll take the brunt of the work here. But I think what you saw, like again, what you're hitting on is so kind of interesting in that you had to almost put yourself portion off a section of yourself and just be one element. In this case, the hyper masculine side. How is it operating in that space though? Because and imagine that because you're so invested, you've created this story and you've kind of emotionally connected to the character. How do you keep yourself from kind of going too far down that hole and being too emotionally invested to the point where like you've become that character? Because your performance is so convincing that it's like I hear what you're telling me, and I'm like, yeah, I see that in the eyes and the lack of emotion on your face when you're giving your initial speech and your introduction.
Look, oh man, it'll make me sound kind of weird, but I kind of, when I sort of switch a character on, like once I get it, like it takes me some time and prep and everything, but once I switch a character on, for me, like the reason I act is, and it sounds so like weird to say, but I kind of stop having my own thoughts. Like because I've been on, I guess because of the number of sets I've been on, I can kind of navigate to my mark and all of that sort of stuff on autopilot using like a different compartmentalized section of my brain. Like I can, I can hit my light and all that
Right.
technical stuff. Like it's like I put the map in my head and I just follow that and it doesn't affect my thoughts, but then my thoughts are really the thoughts of the character. Unless someone's given me like lines at the last minute and I'm just kind of
Right.
trying to remember the words, but that doesn't happen very often on films. Yeah, I feel like I'm literally just I just kind of am thinking the thoughts of the character and the thoughts of Kym are kind of because I do like I don't know if you've ever gone to like when you go to a concert, if you've ever gone to a concert that's like music that's a long way away from your personality.
Yes.
So what would that be for you?
I
Like,
saw this
okay,
band
so what
like
would that be for you?
I think it was like Godspeed the Emperor. I think it was like I was watching these group band. It's like a really like weird prog rock band and everyone was laying down watching this, and I'm like, this does not feel like I'm a jump up and down, get in a pit kind of guy. So like people like laying down, getting lost in this music, possibly on some
Really?
drugs that I was wishing I had at the time too. But um, they were just so into it, and to me, it like felt like I was watching like a National Geographic documentary.
Okay, cool. All right. So if you're there and if you were there, like say you were like the roadie and you're like forced to be there every day or something, your vibration, like your energy would end up, you would kind of just end up in that energy,
Yeah,
right? Like vibrationally. And it's almost, I find it, I don't know how it is for anyone else, but I find it quite difficult to hold two vibrations at the same time, right? So like you've got this high, crazy high energy thing, and then you've got this like slow moving kind of, vibe and just in the,
yeah,
and it's like whatever. So once I'm in the vibration of a character, especially because I don't really like anger isn't a go-to for me anymore. It was when I was a teenager, but it's not a go-to for me. In my normal everyday life, I'm really like up. So if I'm in the vibration of like anger and hate and like all the yucky feelings, and I've kind of locked into a hyper masculine version of myself, there's not really any room for anything else. So it
mm,
can't like slip in. But then it literally the minute they say cut, I'm like often depending how the role depending how intense the scene is, but often it's just kind of like a snap out. Like I'm not like roaming around set hating everyone or
right.
anything.
So
I think
you're
what
not
I
going full
used
method.
to, I remember a Lifetime movie from like 10 years ago where I was kind of just like, I had to go back to my trailer because I was like pretending to be me between scenes and then like going back to my trailer and just being like, and listening to like Metallica and like, because I play baddies a lot because it's super fun.
How did you discover that that was kind of how you operated? Because I feel like it takes such a high level of self-awareness, especially when it comes to acting, to know how to control not just your own self, but also the self that you're portraying in a role. So, was there a
Mm.
moment that you could kind of pinpoint, or maybe just a series of things that occurred that helped you come to this realization that I just need to hold one of these, not both of these at the same time, and then I can be more effective that way?
Look, I think it's through necessity. It's so terrifying doing acting. Like I'm about to go shoot this film in Tijuana and it's a pretty straightforward role. It's quite nuanced, but she's a psychologist, she's my age, she looks like this. She may even be wearing this, who knows? I don't know. Like, but it's not even going to be very far removed from who I am. And those are kind of like the sort of easy-ish roles to kind of, it's just like a walk and talk kind of thing. But it's a really fantastic script called Wildcard, and I think it'll be a really wonderful film. But for me, my role isn't like a great departure from my personality. And I'm nervous. Like it doesn't matter how often you do it. Like it's really scary. And so it's like a survival thing. You're like, oh, how can I? But it's also that's the fun stuff, like I don't feel authentic in a performance. I know there's certain scenes where maybe it doesn't really matter what the actor's feeling, right? Like what matters is what the audience is feeling. And
Sure.
so ultimately it's kind of like a trick or a game. But for me, the selfish part of acting as an actor, the good stuff, like the juice, is when I become another person, I get to be a whole other person. And so it's like we're here and we're born into this life and this like one body, one mind and all that. And you have your own life experiences. But then when you get to be this other person, you have the memories of that character and you have, especially if you sit down and do the work and kind of go through like what their life was and sort of imagine all the different things that you need to inform the things that they do that may not make sense to you, I suppose. Um, but you just get to like be someone else. Like it's so cool. You get to like have their thoughts and have their vibration and completely become another person. Like it's like it's kind of my jam. Like I don't know. It's so much fun. That's the fun of acting, right? And
I mean,
so
it's play. I think it's something that we lose
totally
as
play.
kids is like what brings us so much joy as children, is
Hmm.
obviously having supportive environments around us. Like without that, so many other things are very difficult to achieve. But once
Yeah.
we get past that, it's play. And there's been such,
Yeah.
I wish that Macabre Daily was my sole provider of income, but that's just not the way horror journalism works these days. So in my corporate life, like so much of that is about like how do we get people to thrive, and so much of it is about
Mm.
removing these barriers that we build up as we grow, thinking about what is
Yeah.
acceptable to be like what's the difference between like acceptable for a child versus acceptable for an adult. It's like, well, we kind of lose a lot of that play element, and acting is, in its most advanced form, kind of it's adult play, right? It's becoming
Yeah.
something else, and to that extent, maybe it's just changing how you deliver a line, or in some cases, if you're doing heavy makeups work, and it's being totally transformed into a different person entirely. So I definitely can see how, the fun of it comes from being able to almost be a tourist in these other people's lives,
Mm.
and then
That's
go
a good way
back
to
from
put
it.
it.
But
Yeah.
I know a lot of actors put together like playlists and things like that to help get themselves into character. Does Lieutenant Wilkie
Yeah.
have a playlist? And if so,
No. No,
is there
she
anything on
didn't.
it?
I do feel like I was kind of just generally like listening to some kind of more hardcore stuff at the time. Like when I was a teenager, I was big into like Metallica and Pantera and like all the like I mean, who doesn't love Metallica forever and ever anyway?
Yeah,
But I
it's a
mean, I'm
given.
sure plenty of people, but who from the 90s doesn't? But yeah, no, she didn't. I didn't do a playlist. I've never made a play. I don't have that technological like that's not my strength. And so for me, I will just like think of a band and like play that on YouTube or on my phone or whatever. Like I'm just a bit tech useless with music especially.
No, I mean, I think I mean, for one, I never understood the connection between the playlist and the performance. But then again, like I'm not an actor. So for me,
Um,
it's not, I don't know, not all things. I don't have to understand all things because I am not all things and in all parts of life. So, it's like, I leave that to the professionals, so to speak. But it does seem everyone has their own way of bringing themselves into the role, into the character. Um, And
Oh, don't get me wrong. I would kill for a playlist. Like I should now I'm thinking like, yeah, I should probably get my husband to like teach me how, but I because he would know, but I just have never I don't even know what app I would do a playlist in, but I would love like that would be one of the more useful tools I could imagine because music I think is like the quickest way to shift your vibration. Like you hear all these stories about people even just playing dark music versus light music to plants or people watching comedy to get
yeah.
over like cancer diagnoses, like that sort of thing vibrationally. Music and movies, I think, are two of the best ways to shift your vibration because you're immediately moving out of yourself and you're kind of into the song or you're into the narrative.
And it creates an environment. And I think it's, I think the most common example for me at least is when I play harder metal music, I will drive fast. If I'm driving, I will drive faster. I need to check my
Oh,
speed
me
because
too.
you will just get like your enthusiasm is like turning lead into your toes or something like that. But it's the excitement. It's the, you're feeling like and I think that's back to your vibrations thing, is that there is this element of the music does create an emotional response for us that we follow. And we're
Mm,
emotional beings, for the most part. I think all of us experience a wider range of them. And I think, music obviously being a key part of some people's lives, some more than others, but nevertheless, it is a way of kind of getting to a place and a state a little bit faster than, forcing or willing yourself into it. But, you know,
absolutely.
there's so much in this story that, again, we talked about it's not really a zombie film. It just kind of has zombies in it, but it does deal with some really kind of heavy topics, especially around the need for closure and the lengths people will go for that. But I also hear it a lot of times on sets, particularly with films that are dealing with more challenging materials, that the environment when the camera's not running is often the complete opposite from when it is running. So was that this experience you had where like there's a high amount of levity, in between takes to keep things more positive, or is everyone kind of maintaining that sense of morose, kind of almost, depressed calm that to lead them into the next scene?
No, look, I think look, Daisy is just a master of the craft, man. Like she, I'll say it every chance I get. She was crying off camera in other people's takes just to
Wow.
support them. Whereas, a lot of time, some leading actors won't even, not even celebrities, some literally just leading actors from projects won't show up for the other actors' scenes. Like they'll just have to read with the script supervisor. So. She's such a pro that no one had to have any great reverence in the scenes I was in. So my stuff was kind of at the top of the film, and it has it's more of a cameo, really. It has like crowd scenes, and there's a lot of people around, and so yeah, like we were. In the scene where it's in the trailer, where I'm like, you have nothing to fear, like that kind of bit. At the end of it, at the end of when I was doing that speech, at the end of it, there was kind of a pause, and I was like, oh, they're not gonna like keep going. Like, they will cut before this, and so I kind of just go into, I was just like, all right, there's raspberry Twizzlers at the back if anyone would like something, a coffee, tea, or like you sort of needed something to just like I don't know, lighten the vibe in that kind of energy to kind of come back to human, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah.
I mean, it could be so difficult, especially if you're working. It sounds like you're not going full in on the method process, but people that are, for them, it's like maintaining that space and that moment and that feeling is really important. So anything that disrupts that obviously is going to be kind of in conflict with it. But at the same time, I agree
Mm,
with you that you need something to break up the heaviness of stories like these. And it is a smaller cast in the sense that there's not a lot of main characters, there's not a lot of characters you need to follow. So I think to some extent the intimacy that we get comes a lot of just from seeing how these characters grow and develop together, as opposed to some of the forced intimacy we get with just here's a thing that happens, that causes people to feel a certain way. um
mm.
Now but as we mentioned at the beginning, you've done work in genre before. Is genre something that you enjoy in your own personal time, or is it something that you're like, nope, that's just where the work takes me?
I get so into it. So like on set, I just did a job called The Cryptid in West Virginia, and my character was literally spends the whole film locked in a cage, pregnant. And so and
Even better.
and and I've been there for 2 years, and so but there's this scene where well, my husband, by the way, who booked the lead in the film, gets to just run around and be the hero and have all these cool scenes and like be like the cool guy. I'm just in a cage pregnant. So with like the guy that was one of the voices from Unicorn Academy, Charlie Adler, who's like the nicest guy in the world and a phenomenal actor, having his first foray into the genre element and world. So I literally one of the actors runs at me at one point as a monster, and we were just rehearsing the scene, and she came and with her makeup and ran at me, and I literally like screamed in real life, started crying in real life, and had to leave set and go find Charlie for a hug. Like I was like I'm the biggest baby, and so for me, being God, it's so scary shooting horror films, but like at least when you're on set, you know what's really happening. And so your memory doesn't look, to be honest, your memory actually does think everything you've done as an actor is a real thing. So it
Yeah.
it can it can screw people up. But if you've been experiencing it in your body and and in your mind, and it's you've been living it, there shouldn't be any real distinction in your memory neurons for how they store that information and how they
Yeah.
store those memories. So it actually did technically happen to you. But at least you can kind of be like, oh, I can kind of picture the crew around me and I know where we were and I know the reality of it. When you're watching a horror film, you're in the character, right? So you're like with the lead. You're with them and you're kind of experiencing it through them, but you don't know it's pretend. Like your
Right.
brain thinks it's real. And so for me, if I watch scary movies, like when I'm in a scary movie, it's so much fun. When I watch scary movies, I can't sleep for weeks. I'll have like I had nightmares after I watched Jurassic Park. I had nightmares for like 8 years.
I
I
mean,
couldn't go
that's a
into the
scary
backyard.
movie. There, like Jurassic Park is a horror movie,
It
despite
is
it got
terrifying.
wildly successful. Dinosaurs killing people on an island that they've escaped from. That's a horror beat right there.
Yeah. When I was like 8 or 9 years old, I walked in when my parents were watching The Poltergeist, and I happened to walk in when the pool of skeletons scene was
Oh,
happening. And I was like, I'm sure it was Poltergeist. I'm
yeah,
saying
that's
the right movie.
Poltergeist.
Dude. So I like it my entire childhood for the next 10 years. I would think of that almost every time I was in the dark. That or Jurassic Park if I was looking out the window in the backyard. And so for me, it's so deeply traumatizing when I watch a horror film. But when I'm in a horror film, horror films are such easy um heightened situations for an actor. Like for instance, the film I'm about to go do. I'm a therapist, so I'm walking, I'm giving advice, I'm having a conversation. I've got maybe 3 or 4 scenes, or maybe 5 or 6 scenes where I'm kind of coming in and just kind of chatting, just getting to the bottom of something. There's no like extremes of emotion. It's all nuance, and that's actually sometimes can be trickier. But
Yeah.
with horror, you're like, your life's in danger, and now I'm running, and now this is happening, and now, like, so it's real extremes of emotion. And it's like, fear and joy and hope and happiness and crying. So it's you as an actor, you get to experience the full spectrum of emotions in these really extreme ways. And yeah, I don't know. Like again, kind of a self. Apparently, I just keep saying the word selfish. So apparently, I'm literally just
No,
acting for myself at all times. But it's like it's just really fun. Like it's so much fun. So yeah, I really love doing horror films. I will only do them if they have exceptional screenplays, though, because you do get quite a few through where the script hasn't
sure.
gone through enough development. They're relying on the gags, and they think that just because, oh, you know, because the horror community is so supportive of horror films, right? So
Yep.
you don't need a big star. You don't need a lot of money to make a horror film that's really accepted because the horror community is not as judgmental, I think, as the wider audience, where the wider audience, even me, when I'm watching looking at Netflix trying to figure out what to watch, I'm like, oh, who's in it? Who's in it? Who's in it? Like it's one of
Right.
the first questions we asked. We ask. I don't know that the horror community does that to the same extent as the general population. And so I feel like I don't know, what's your opinion on that? It just
I think there's a couple of factors that influence that because I think you're right, which is one that I've always joked that horror fans will watch, 90 minutes of trash for 10 minutes of glory. Like, so like the last 10 minutes work so well that like it'll make, I mean, I think the best example of this is Sleepaway Camp. It is not a good movie by many measures, but it has such a powerful, remarkable ending that you're like, okay, well, that movie's clearly in Pantheon because it's so of its ending. And so I think,
yeah.
and the other competing factor is societally, horror films have often and are still somewhat considered to be like a lesser than form of entertainment. Like it's basically like, adult entertainment and then horror movies. And it's like and I think that stigma has changed over the years because of the financial success and the broader acceptance of horror. But I think that stigma still persists in terms of how we relate to it, in that you're almost extra forgiving of genre films simply because you know that you're kind of getting something that isn't supposed to be the best and most well produced thing you've ever seen. So, but I
Makes
also think that
sense.
the enthusiasm that, the reason why people come to horror, at least I speak for myself, I'm not going to speak for everybody. It's just it's silly, but a lot of us have been othered in some way in our lives. We never felt like we completely fit in, and horror was a place that felt like that's where we go. And now that it's
Yeah.
become more accepted, I think that, with that, we're seeing better, bigger productions. But ultimately, we just want to be entertained. And I think horror is pure entertainment. Like it is, um,
Yeah.
even the most subtle horror films are, usually riding high on some sort of emotional element that keeps you engaged, or some sort of, monstrous or grotesque element. But all of that is just pure entertainment. And to some
Mm.
extent, as you mentioned, like you get, as an actor, I imagine when you're playing a role like, the role you're going into next, you're not necessarily playing somebody, you're playing somebody else, but it's not a far departure from you. Whereas in horror, I like to think you're not getting chased by a maniac cryptid every single day. So this isn't like a day in the life of Kym Jackson is being chased by cryptids. So you
Yeah.
get to like play in a world that hopefully you never have to experience in real life.
Yeah, that's funny. Actually, fantasy is my favorite genre of all genres. And
Oh, really?
oh yeah, obsessed. Like obsessed. I watch Stardust every year on my birthday. I think it's one of the most incredible films that no one's ever seen. And horror films like Attack the Block, I love, which
Yes.
feels more like actiony, or something like because it's not like I guess the monster isn't that scary or something.
Yeah, they're
Like
kind of
it
cute.
feel
Look like
it's more
goofballs or
sci-fi
something.
than horror. It's like a sci-fi horror genre mash or something. So I do love that. I do love that escapism of being taken to a world that's outside of my own self, I suppose. And I think that is part of the reason that I do love doing genre films as an actor. Uh, it's just script wise, you just have to be very cautious because when you're in the independent world and things haven't gone through development, um, it can be a little like you really have to pay attention to the structure of the script because the script is the skeleton of the film, right? Like you can't
Yeah.
I was at the chiropractor yesterday and she was like, "Oh, everything's good." She did like kinesiology. She's like, "Your nutrition's good. You don't have any like this, or the other. Like every other element is really good. Your emotions are in a really great place." And she's like, "But your structure's out." And I'm like, "Okay, well you can't like you hang all the meat on this skeleton and if the skeleton's out, there's not a whole, you've got to fix the skeleton before you can
Right.
kind of construct an entire world around it." And so for me, I'm really picky on screenplays and I also like to know because I tend to usually play um a major supporting role in things. So like my favorite place to be is kind of like number 2 or 3 to number 8 on the call sheet because you get to play these really cool characters and you don't necessarily have the pressure of being the lead. I would love to be the lead more often. I was one of the 2 leads encrypted, and you get a lot. Like there's a lot of meat there, but I do really enjoy those major supporting roles that I tend to always like. That tends to be where I end up. So I like to know that the lead and the second, like the at least 1 or 2 of the actors that I'll be working in most of my scenes with have are really talented and have a pretty substantial resume. So there's sort of the two things I look out for. And these days, production designer, the DP
Mm,
and the production designer, I underestimated the importance of that earlier on in my career. And now I know, honestly, like I think production design and like I think it just makes or breaks a film. And obviously the DP is the eyes of the
right.
audience. So that's a massive element too. It really is film's such a collaboration, you know?
It is. And it's I think that's one of the reasons why, at least at Macabre Daily, our mantra is it's okay to be constructive, just don't be cruel. Because
Yeah.
I think horror's output is so much higher than other genres. And it's because I think the barrier to access is low. I think there's a lot of money to be made there. And I think a lot of people like horror movies. So it's like it's with the democratization of tools that people use to make films now, like anyone can literally go and
Yeah.
make a movie right now. So what that
Yeah.
also means with an overwhelming amount of content is an increased variance of quality. And,
Mm,
you know, I think again, no one goes into this trying to make a bad movie. But sometimes things don't work out. Maybe,
yeah.
the actors, didn't fully understand the line or the roles as well, or maybe they weren't scripted well enough for them to fully get into them. Maybe the timeline was like you had supposed to have 3 weeks to shoot, now you only have two, or even just the removal of a
Or casting
day.
from self-tapes. Now they do all
Oh
the
yeah,
auditions. We tape our auditions at home. So, you can do 50 takes. And so a very bad actor could do a very good self-tape with enough coaching, and then they show up on
right.
set and they can't do the job.
Yeah. And so there's all these variables now that I think that, again, no one tries to make it bad, but sometimes things don't turn out as they're supposed to. And I think,
Mm,
it's important um, as any creator, whatever your process is, you should work with things that you feel good around and you feel comfortable with. So, taking work just to take work, I think can serve a certain point in one's career, but eventually you reach a point where you say, I don't
mm,
want to do just anything. I want to do something that moves me,
yeah.
that, impacts me in some way. And so I think having that awareness of what you want to be in and what serves you best probably just
Mm,
means is more conducive to better filmmaking, right? If everyone applied the same level of analysis to their own, like, should I take this role or not, we might get better outcomes. But um,
mm.
all of that said, I do have some kind of non like the we bury the dead questions, or at least adjacent to them. The first one is, what's the farthest you've ever gone to seek closure?
To seek closure? I don't know if this is so when I first came to LA, I mean distance wise, I when I first came to LA, I had gone to the Cannes Film Festival, met a man and a woman that ran a production company in Hollywood, and I I connected really well with them, and he sort of offered me a job working in Hollywood, and I was living in Sydney working in a bar at the time. This is when I was like 18 or something, or no, 20 something. And so but on the way back from the film festival, I had met this guy at a bar, and we didn't do anything naughty, but we just like had this epic connection. It was just like off the charts, really intense, kind of otherworldly vibe. And so I went back to Sydney. I kept trying to contact the people from the production company, but they weren't taking my calls because the guy owned a bank, and and I couldn't get through. So eventually, I had to like pretend to be someone else. I was like, "Hey, it's Jackie Long. I met Mr. Blah 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 at the film festival, and I want to buy his film." And so I finally got through, and he's like, "Jackie, hi, well done." And so I end up getting the job at the time because I skipped a lot of school. I was really naughty in school. I was so dumb. Like I just thought I was too cool to be in class, and so I was always ditching, and I was really naughty, and and so I didn't know that England was like on the other side of America. Like I didn't know it wasn't like kind of on the way. So when I got the job, they were like, "Can we fly you out for this film we've got?" And I said to him, literally, I said to my new employer, "I met a guy in England." And I want to make sure I tie up all the loose ends before I come work for you so I can be really focused on my new job. Can you fly me through England from Australia? Can you fly me through England for, a couple of nights so I can go see this guy? Like an idiot. And so he's like an architecture student at some like I don't know, at some university, wherever. And I go and stay with this guy for like 3 or 4 nights in England. Have the most amazing time. He lives, it's like a little, it wasn't a frat house, but he had, like 6 roommates in a like, and he was like the top level of a 3-story walk up. And, we got in trouble for like jumping the train, like, sneaking on the train and all the drinking games and all the madness. And, yeah, like it was amazing. And when I left then, I knew I was never going to see him again, but I felt a great deal of closure. So I guess I went to Hollywood, worked for the production company for 6 months. The guy turned out to be pretty much insane. And then and like not the guy from London, the
Right.
boss.
Yeah, the
The boss
production
turned out
man.
to be pretty much insane. And then I lived in a storage room for 3 months. And then the woman who ran the production company kind of rescued me and ended up kind of taking me under her wing. And she is still my best friend today.
Oh, well, wow. I'm glad that sort of closure ended in friendship. Uh, and kudos for them flying you to London despite on
I
this ask.
can't
That's,
believe it. At the time, it seemed so logical. I was just one of those people that was just like, well, they can always say no, I'll just ask. You know?
I mean, that you're not wrong. I think I used to be in sales, and the one thing they'd always say is if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's like,
Oh
well,
yeah.
yeah, it's true. And I think perhaps the audacity is what blew them off track. They're like, oh, well, this person must be important because they're willing to make such an ask. So
Oh yeah.
good on you for asking, and good on them for meeting the request head on. But my
Can't
last
believe
question
it.
for you is again just purely a fun one: is do you have a favorite Tim, or what do you think is the best Tim Tam flavor? As a resident of Australia,
Oh mate, I've got to tell you, like I'm an OG. Like I can't with the flavors. Like the original Tim Tam, but it has to be done with a Tim Tam Slam with the um I did it because it works either with tea, coffee, or hot chocolate. And I don't know if anyone's instructed. You may already know this, but for the audience, I will make sure they know. So Tim Tam Slam is it's a rectangle, so you bite off this corner and that corner, like
the
you bite off
diagonal.
opposing corners, just a little nibble, just enough to expose the biscuit part, and then you put your mouth around one corner and drink the hot liquid up through the Tim Tam. The entire Tim Tam collapses in on itself, and as it melts and is about to slip out of your hand, you throw the whole Tim Tam in your mouth. You have chocolate all over your fingers, and so then you have to, like the key is you have to really enjoy the texture and the flavor. You push your tongue to the top of your mouth and you like squish it all around. Then you swallow it, and then you get to lick your fingers that are covered in chocolate. And so like this, it's like
This is how I'm
maybe
gonna be
one of the
eating Tim
most
Tams
important
now.
parts of. Pardon?
This is how I'm eating Tim Tams for going forward.
Oh, you have to. No, no, no. That's like the key. That's what we do. And so, no, it's very important. But for me, all the flavors, I guess, I don't know. I'm such an OG person with Australian stuff. Like when a new company distributes, like for instance, the Cadbury chocolate in America doesn't
It's not
taste
the
like the
same.
Cadbury chocolate in Australia. I don't know if it might even be the same. It just might be psychosomatic, but my brain thinks because Hershey's is distributing it in America that it's not the same, and I feel like it tastes different. So,
I think it
yeah, for
is.
me, everything has to be how it was in my childhood.
I'm pretty sure that, well, I know, for example, like Nutella, my wife is from Poland, so she's always talked
Oh,
about how
oh,
the
I'm
Nutella in
Polish.
your, oh, right, okay, well,
Hey.
what do I know in Polish? It's Wesołe Świąt. It was recently Christmas, so Wesołe Świąt. But
Oh, okay. I know no Polish, but that's great. I'll try to
I
remember that for next time.
I know just a little more than you, and that's like one phrase. So whenever I go home
That's
with
awesome.
her to the holidays, it's me doing a lot of nodding, smiling, and trying to guess what people are saying based on their facial reactions, which is hard because most of her family have a very stoic demeanor. So yeah,
Yes.
I call it the Polish smile, just having a good time.
Yeah. It's the under eye smile.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. But
It's good.
I feel the way I think you about you how you feel about Tim Tams is the way I feel about Oreos, and that as soon as we experiment all these different
Um,
flavors and things, we start to this is chaos and this is not what God
yes.
intended. Um,
It's stressful.
but as someone who believes that Tim Tam is the best biscuit on the market, I had to ask the question of a native Australia or someone in Australia of what their preference would be. But Kym, this has been such a fun conversation, and I'm so grateful for you making the time to have it. And I want to remind everyone that you can catch We Bury the Dead in theaters now. I'm sure it'll be coming to VOD relatively soon if it isn't already. So please give it your attention, your dollars, and your time because it is well worth it. And Kym, I cannot wait to see Cryptids once it's out, and just continue to follow your career. And I'm so
Thank
grateful
you.
for the time we spent together, and I hope you the best of luck on not just the next film, but the rest of your career. And hope we get to talk again soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Same here, Kym. Thank you.